This talk covers the last 2 years of my undergrad and the 2 years between then and now. But before undergrad, I graduated with a biomed degree. I worked in a lab for a couple of years, and then I applied for art school. Art school was a new environment with new people, so a lot of my work during undergrad was about navigating this new environment and finding my position within it. One of my early approaches involved exploring my family history and just trying to figure out how I ended up in art school. This is a bronze cast titled As a Child Did and Was a Single Egg Shared with a Brother and Two Sisters. And for me, works like this helped me get over the guilt of pursuing fine art despite some of my family members coming from backgrounds of relative impoverishment. After making a couple of works that addressed these intimate histories, I felt somewhat guilty about presenting these stories to people who had totally different backgrounds and values, a process that rendered these stories null through their aestheticization. So to exorcise these emotions of guilt, I made a series of 21 shirts with various family photos on them. I wanted to take control of the aestheticization process, or at least acknowledge it. And in an act of excess, I tried to obscure the stories of a young immigrant family. This trajectory led me to seek out advice from an artist or an academic with a similar background, or at least someone of non-Western descent. And maybe I was going about it the wrong way, but there aren't many academics within the School of Visual Arts that fit that profile. And I know now, there are other ways to get in contact with people who could have helped, but um, I just didn't know that back then, and so I felt really isolated, which led me to make works like this. This is a performance piece that appropriates Marina Abramovich's Imponderabilia. I replace the nude forms with men in uniform. And so when I made this work, I also started asking academic staff why they thought there was a lack of diversity um, within the School of Visual Arts. And most of the responses I received fell along the lines of the School of Visual Art lacks diversity because people of Asian descent, people of non-Western descent, people of indigenous descent um, don't really pursue fine arts at uni. And when they do, it's really difficult to hold on to them. Coming from a science background, I understood this statement completely, but hearing this four, five, six times changed my perspective. Hearing this reply so many times seemed like everyone thought that there was nothing that could be done to improve the diversity within the School of Visual Arts. This kind of changed when I received this email from a senior staff member that I had spoken to. It more or less reads, "Your concern regarding diversity is poignant. There are a couple of programs in place to increase diversity within the School of Visual Arts, but there's still considerable room to extend this agenda." And this meant a lot to me. This was, it showed that, there was something to be done, something could be done. It meant a lot to me. So I printed this email on the back of some overalls and wore them in a performance piece for my grad show. This performance appropriates John Baldessari's "I will not make any more boring art," but I replaced the boring with political. "I will not make any more political art." This kind of signaled for me the end of having to deal with work that addressed the diversity within the School of Visual Arts. In addition to the overalls that I wore, I had four sets of printed overalls hung on the opposite wall of this performance to loosely represent the four departments, but I also gave them the overalls to sculpture students in the year below me. I'm not sure where they are now, whether they've been kept or handed down again, but that was my last fuck you to, yeah. After graduating, I wanted to take on something I've never done before, so I took up oil painting. But with a new medium in a new environment away from art school, my work still seemed to revolve around issues of identity. This painting was an early experiment. I just wanted to see what these signifiers from, you know, my upbringing would mean within the context of each other. And paintings like this addressed issues of masculinity and so on. And soon I realized that issues of identity was central to my practice, and this made me somewhat upset. My experience with identity in relation to art was not a great one so far. And so I looked for a way out by reading. I didn't make much progress until I came across this exhibition catalogue, maybe mid last year, entitled Don't You Know Who I Am? Art After Identity Politics. And within it, co-curator Nav Hark writes that artists in the group show had practices that dealt less with issues of identity, but rather the process of identification. And so from this reading, I got to realize that there was something underneath issues of personal identity and identity politics. Something I saw as a way around the issues I had with addressing identity. So I read into sociology and came across Steph Lawler's book on identity. Steph Lawler somewhat calls out my practice, writing that identity is often foregrounded by its apparent loss or instability, which to me describes my process in regards to art and identity. But she goes on to say that the only problem with looking at identity in this way is that the day-to-day processes of identity formation and identification are obscured, which leads me to why I'm here in honors. I'm hoping to better understand identity and progress my practice past this kind of surface level exploration of identity, which you know is really anxiety inducing for me. So, yep, that's it.